Teenage killers. A 15-year-old girl is found guilty of murdering a mother and her daughter. Elizabeth Edwards and 13-year-old Katie were killed in their beds. The teenager and her boyfriend had planned the murder in detail.
These two were 14 years of age when they planned, committed these callous, senseless and unprovoked attacks on Elizabeth and Katie.
Both killers are too young to be named. Also tonight, the controversial and long-awaited decision on airport expansion in Britain. Ministers will choose next week, but a final vote will take another year. The rising cost of fuel and clothing pushes inflation up to its highest rate for nearly 2 years.
There were challenges.
We were kept at a distance. The panel had concerns about the qualities of leadership.
New revelations about the troubled inquiry into child sex abuse. Members of the team speak out.
My husband, he's raw and he's real, and he tells it as it is.
Melania Trump is standing by her man. She says his comments about women is just boy talk. Remembering the victims of the Aberfan disaster 50 years ago, a special report on how a mining community was let down when it needed help.
And coming up in the sport on BBC News, Leicester City look to take a giant step towards qualification for the knockout stages of the Champions League by securing victory over Copenhagen tonight.
Good evening and welcome to the BBC's News at 6. A 15-year-old girl has been found guilty of murdering a mother and daughter as they slept at their home in Spalding in Lincolnshire in April. The trial in Nottingham heard how the teenager and her boyfriend, both 14 at the time, planned to kill Elizabeth and Katie Edwards. The boyfriend pleaded guilty to murder before the trial began, but the girl claimed that mental illness diminished her responsibility for the crime. They are thought to be the youngest couple found guilty of murder in Britain. Danny Savage is in Nottingham for us. Danny.
George, at 12:30 this afternoon in court number 2 here, the 15-year-old girl was told to stand to listen to the verdicts. She showed no emotion as she was unanimously found guilty of murder. Victims, relatives of the victims in court cried out and sobbed at the end of this harrowing case.
Liz Edwards and her daughter Katie were found murdered in their home in Spalding in April. They were both well-liked and adored each other. This crime is exceptional, though, because they were killed by 2 children, a boyfriend and girlfriend drawn together by violent and extreme thoughts. She was today found guilty of murder and has never shown any remorse.
What makes this case even more shocking is that these two were 14 years of age when they planned, committed these callous, senseless and unprovoked attacks on Elizabeth and Katie. This case left a number of lives in ruins. Not only Elizabeth and Katie's families, but also the 2 juveniles who committed these horrendous crimes.
Liz Edwards, 49 years old and enjoying Christmas with the man she was hoping to marry.
There you go. Go on.
Friends say she was happy and content.
I did notice a change in her. She was a lot happier, and she met somebody she can trust, who loved her kids as much as she did, which I thought was really sweet.
She's a nice lady.
Jane Blanford also knew Liz Edwards and says she was a friendly, popular lady.
She's always very nice, kind, caring.
And she has strong views on the 2 14-year-olds who sat down to watch teen romance vampire films after they killed.
Scum. I've got nothing to say. He's just scum, mate. I hope he gets locked up and they throw the key away. I'll be honest, I really do. She could have had a bright future ahead of her. Then if this didn't happen, he could have had a bright future ahead of her. I just see it, they're throwing everything all away.
And they didn't just throw everything away on a whim. The 2 teenagers planned these murders in detail. They went and sat in a local McDonald's to plot. And on the night of the killings, the boy walked along this river in the dark to rendezvous with the girl, carrying kitchen knives to kill their victims.
What happened next was described in court as cold, calculated, callous killings. The girl told police she'd felt like murdering for quite a while, and that a gun would have been easier. The knife was a better solution. The murder weapon was shown to the jury, who were asked to consider if the girl was mentally ill. They concluded she wasn't. The personal possessions of the victims have now gone from an end terrace in a Lincolnshire cul-de-sac. Many people will be left wondering how an intense teenage romance got to the point where killing this well-liked mum and daughter became a reality.
Now, the two 15-year-olds will be sentenced next month, and they have to remain anonymous at the moment because of their young age, although a judge could lift that order when it comes to sentencing, so in a few weeks' time we could be publicly identified. George.
Danny, thank you very much. The timetable for the long-awaited decision on increasing Britain's airport capacity has become clearer tonight. Ministers will decide next week whether Heathrow or Gatwick should be expanded, but a final vote in Parliament will only take place at the end of next year. That's at the earliest. The controversial decision has been repeatedly delayed. John Pienaar has more details.
The crucial choice of where and how to expand Britain's airport capacity has hung in the air for over a quarter century. Today it's drawn closer. There'll be a government recommendation next week, Heathrow or Gatwick, though Parliament's view won't be heard for a year. Heathrow's the most controversial option and some believe the most likely. Demos against air and noise pollution have run for years, split parties and now the Cabinet. Education Secretary Justine Greening joined this demo in May, alongside Labour's Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell holding the placard. And of course Boris Johnson, now Foreign Secretary, who offered protesters this pledge the moment he was re-elected an MP.
I will lie down with you in front of those bulldozers and stop the building, stop the construction of that third runway.
Theresa May has written to ministers saying those with strong views could stick to them, but not campaign actively. There'll be no resignations, for now, but plenty of debate.
I think it's very important to get the decision, and to get the decision right. We've been waiting for a long time for airport expansion in the UK. We need it. And post-Brexit, if we are going to be an open trading nation and looking at new alliances around the world, then we're certainly going to need more airport capacity.
Have you changed your mind on Heathrow expansion?
There's more at stake than cabinet unity, but that unity is at stake, and Theresa May is keeping her top team intact, at least till the final reckoning. Till then, one of the trickiest environmental, economic and political debates in post-Brexit Britain goes on.
The decision-taking and the planning procedures are fiendishly complex and they won't be hurried. There may be no final political decision until deep into 2018. And even then, there's every chance of a legal challenge led by Greenpeace and a lineup of local authorities, including one in Theresa May's own backyard. After 25 years of wrangling, George, those who've been pressing and pressing for this decision may just have to wait.
All right, John, thank you very much. Inflation's on the rise, up nearly half a percentage point in September compared to August. At 1%, it's at the highest rate for nearly 2 years. Rising prices for clothes and petrol are behind the rise. Here's our economics editor, Kamal Ahmed.
How much we spend on a meal out. How much we pay to fill up with fuel. How much we pay for what we wear. All have increased in price as inflation starts to march upward. And it is just the start.
I think it's fair to say that the trajectory for inflation from here is likely to the upside, and that really is largely as the falls in the currency start to feed through to higher import prices. We've only just started seeing signs of that.
What is behind the inflation spike? Clothing prices were 6% higher last month as stores slowed aggressive discounting. Restaurant and hotel prices were also up by 0.7% after summer bargains ended. And fuel crept up a little to 111 pence per litre compared to 110 pence last year. A small increase with larger rises predicted over the next year.
Well, currently there's a bit of a double whammy. The main factor is the pound is so much weaker against the dollar. That's pushing things up. We buy our fuel in dollars, so that affects us. And then on the other side, OPEC and Russia are talking about cutting back on production. So that puts